The good knight Ulfrad also fought the whole day with great distinction. He carried the standard of Markgraf Rodinger, and he rode far forward into the army of the Amlungs and struck men and horses on both sides. And Markgraf Rodinger followed him boldly. They had killed many men, and no more stood before them. In the same way, the illustrious knight Rheinald rode forward from his men and struck down Huns, one on top of the other. His birnie and his horse were completely bloody. He saw how much damage Ulfrad, his kinsman, was doing among the Amlungs, so that his man wished to flee before Ulfrad and Markgraf Rodinger. Rheinald rode boldly against them with great vehemence, and he pointed his spear at the chest of his kinsman Ulfrad, so that it split open the birnie and the chest and came out in the back, and he fell dead from his horse. Markgraf Rodinger was nearby, and he took up his standard staff and held the standard high and rode forward most boldly. He struck at the knight who was carrying the standard with his sword and struck him in the neck so that it took off his head, and broke the standard staff, and the standard fell to the ground. When the Amlungs saw that Rheinald's standard had fallen and that Vidga had fled, they all took flight. And when Rheinald saw that all of his men were fleeing, he turned and fled himself. After this, a knight rode quickly to King Thidrek. He was one of his men, and he called out and said, "My good lord King Thidrek, do not pursue this army any longer. I have bad news for you that is of great importance and true. The evil dog Vidga killed first your good Duke Naudung, and then you lost Ortvin and his brother Erp, your princess, and then he killed your good friend Hjalprek, and now your brother Teta is dead. All of this was done by the evil dog Vidga. Ride back, sir, and avenge them." And King Thidrek answered, "What cause have I given God that he has let such an evil day come to me? No weapon has been able to touch me today, and I have no wounds. But both of my princes are dead, and my dear brother Teta. Even though I count it much that he is dead, I could bear it if my princes were still alive, because from this day on, I shall not be able to return to Hunland. I shall now either die or avenge my princes." He turned his horse Falka back and urged him on with his spurs, and his whole army followed him. He rode so fast and vehemently that no one was able to follow him. He rode to the place where the battle had taken place, And he was so full of anger and grief, and grim determination, that fire flew from his mouth, and no man dared fight him. When Vidga saw that, he fled like the other men. And the horse that had belonged to Theta carried Vidga swiftly down along the river Musula. But King Thidrek pursued him and called out to him, "You evil dog, wait for me. I wish to avenge my brother, whom you killed, and you shall not live any longer. If you dare to fight with one man, then wait for me." And Vidga pretended that he did not hear and rode even faster. And Thidrek called out again and bade him wait, if he dared, and said that it was a shameful thing to flee before a single man, and that he wanted to avenge his brother. And Vidga answered, "I was forced to kill your brother, and I would not have killed him if I could have kept my life. And if I can offer compensation of gold and silver, then I shall certainly compensate you." And he now rode as hard as his horse could go. But Thidrek continued to pursue him. And Vidga rode into a lake, but Thidrek had almost caught up with him. Vidga sank at this moment into the water, and Thidrek shot his spear after him. And the spear shaft remained standing where the point went into the earth, at the mouth of the river. The spear shaft is still standing there today, and anyone who goes there can see it. Now King Thidrek rode back to where the battle had taken place, and he saw where many of his men had fallen, friends and kinsmen. And then he came to the place where his brother Theta lay, and he spoke. "There you lie, my brother Theta. It is the greatest grief to me that you have come to this." He picked up his shield and cast away the shield he had had before, because it had been hewn to uselessness. And he now went to where the princes had fallen, with their white byrnies and their hard helmets. But they had availed nothing, since they lay there dead. King Thidrek spoke now. "My dear princes, it is the greatest grief to me that I have lost you. How can I return now to Susa? God knows that I would rather have endured great wounds and have you well." And King Thidrek now went away, and all of his men came to him. He spoke. "Hear me, Markgraf Rodinger. Carry my greetings to King Attila and to Queen Erka, home to Hunland. I shall never again come to Hunland, because of the many excellent men King Attila has lost for my sake." And the Markgraf and many other chieftains answered him and said, "You shall not do this. It often happens in battle that chieftains lose their dearest man and still gain the victory, as we have done. You should give thanks that you have gained the victory, and you shall not give yourself up, even though you have lost your princes. We should rather ask Queen Erka to accept matters as they are, even though she has lost her sons. And we shall all support you in that, so that King Attila shall be no worse friend than before. But King Thidrek spoke and said that he would never be able to travel home in this fashion, because I promised Queen Erka that I would bring back both of her sons, and now I have not kept this promise. All the chieftains and knights went to King Thidrek and said, "Our good lord King Thidrek, return home with us to Hunland. We shall support you, so that King Attila and Queen Erka shall be no less your friends than before. If you will not return with us to Hunland, then we will all follow you. Return to your kingdom and fight with King Erminrek, and we shall not return until you have your kingdom." And King Thidrek answered, "I certainly do not dare to go any farther with King Attila's army, as badly as things have gone. Since I have lost his 2 sons, I would rather return home with you." And they turned back all the army, and they traveled their way until they arrived in Hunland, where they met King Attila in Susa. When King Thidrek arrived in Susa, he went to a small house and did not want to meet King Attila and Queen Erka. Markgraf Rodinger went into the hall of King Attila and came before him and spoke, "Hail, Lord King Attila!" And King Attila replied, "Welcome, my vassal Markgraf Rodinger. What news can you give me of your expedition? Is King Thidrek alive? Have the Huns gained victory or defeat? Have things gone well or ill?" And Markgraf Rodinger answered, "King Thidrek is alive, and the Huns were victorious. But things have gone ill, in that we have lost your 2 princes, Erp and Ordwin." And Queen Erka cried out when she heard this, as did almost everyone in the hall. King Attila spoke, "Who among the Huns fell with my sons?" And the Markgraf answered, "Sir, many brave men fell there. The first was Prince Dietrich of Bern, and good friend Hjalprek, and Duke Naudung, Vildifair, and many other good warriors and many chieftains. The Amlungs lost more than twice as many men before us, and those who survived escaped in flight." King Attila spoke and responded to this news bravely. It is now, as it always has been, that those who are fated to die shall fall, and good weapons and great strength will give no man life if he is fated to die. This has been shown for certain on this expedition, because my sons Erb and Ordwin and their foster brother Theta all had the best weapons ever made, and they all lie dead. And King Attila continued, "Where is now my good friend King Thidrek?" And one man replied, "King Thidrek and Master Hildebrand are sitting in a kitchen house, and there they have removed their armor, and they do not wish to come into your presence, sir. It seems to him so ill that he has lost your princess." King Attila spoke. "Let my 2 knights go out and bid my friend King Thidrek come in. He will have to meet me, even though things have turned out this way." And these 2 knights went to where King Dietrich of Bern was sitting and bade him go in before King Attila. And they said he had sent them after him. King Thidrek answered that he had such heaviness of mind and such grief that he did not want to come into the presence of other men in this condition. And these knights went back in and told King Attila that King Thidrek did not want to come into his presence. This episode ends with a lot of grief for King Dietrich of Bern, because he had lost these young sons of King Attila and his own brother Theta. But that he will still speak to King Attila and Queen Erka, you'll get to hear in the next episode, back here in our Hall of Sagenheim.